This is a photo book I ordered from Japan. It's by a photographer called Akina Koko, whom I found on Twitter, and it's very whimsical. And the more that I look at these photos, the more I realize how important it is to me to be able to take photos that have that whimsical feeling. But how? What's different about these? Well, first of all, you might think it's just a nice pastel color grade over the backdrop of Japan, which is famously the most photogenic place on planet Earth. And so obviously that's not going to work for you because you live in, I don't know, Białystok or somewhere. You would be incorrect. There's a lot that goes into making photos that feel this type of way, a lot that has to happen before you even press the shutter. It's not just a case of editing and color, although that is part of it. I think anybody can take whimsical photos anywhere, but before we get to the how and why, I think we need to understand what exactly our goal is here just a little better. I looked up the word whimsical in the Oxford English Dictionary, but the website has a paywall. Fair enough. So I used Merriam-Webster, which had a fairly unhelpful definition, but then I looked up whim, which means a capricious or eccentric and often sudden idea or turn of the mind, which basically means when something is whimsical, it's slightly strange and very spontaneous. Now, I think that's not what a lot of us think of when we think of the word whimsical. I mean, to me, it feels more like silly and light. But knowing where it comes from is quite important when we're trying to take pictures that feel that way. Wouldn't it be quite whimsical of you to subscribe to the channel somewhere down there? I think so. And you know what? That definition, it makes sense when I look at these photos in here. They're not super constructed or set up. They're very slice of life. It's as if Akina Koko just really loves going on long walks and occasionally snaps an iPhone photo if the vibe is right, and it works. I guess the first thing we can learn from this is that whimsy is less of a Pinterest aesthetic that you can buy props and presets for, and it's more of a mindset. Instead of trying to take whimsical photos, I think a much better approach is to try to feel whimsical and then just go and take photos. Now, I understand that that's easier said than done if you ever read the news or just are like under 25 in general, but if I could give you some certified unk advice for a second, you can practice going for a walk, intending to feel a certain type of way, and you will get better at it. Now, of course, there are some concrete, real hard skill things we can do with our eyeballs and our gear choices to really make it much easier to get this aesthetic. But first, one thing that really helps me to feel that whimsical mood in my photos is music, especially music from today's video sponsor, Epidemic Sound. I've been using Epidemic Sound since the very beginning of this channel right up to this very video, and if I could sum it up in one sentence, it'd be this: Epidemic Sound always has the exact vibe you're looking for, even if it's really niche. Sometimes I want a certain genre that's hard to find, and somehow they have it. Sometimes I need an oddly specific sound effect, and it's there. Adding music to my work, both video and my stills a lot of the time, means that I can curate a mood and a feeling that matches to steer viewers in the right direction. I'm also very pleased to say that Epidemic Sound's 55,000 plus song catalog is made by real human artists, and it's very easy to use in your projects without any complicated copyright gotchas. Start soundtracking your visual art today by signing up for Epidemic Sound using the link in the video description, and make sure you use the code HUNTER for a free trial plus a discount on your first couple of months. A big thank you to Epidemic Sound and to you for supporting what I do. Alright, nitty gritty, what can we change about our composition and our gear? Well, something I've noticed about a lot of the photos in this book is how prominent the sky is. I think a big part of that is that it's just a nice way to add depth and color, but the big skies do a couple of other things too. One, it keeps the composition fresh, and as we all know,
when the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. When the horizon's at the top, it's interesting. When the horizon's in the middle, it's boring as shit.
And if you think about it, a lot of these look like they were shot at quite an angle, a bit like how a kid might see the scene. The colors also definitely feel like how I used to perceive the world before I spent 15 years staring at a screen and before my glasses were so old they went yellow. And so I think a big part of what makes these photos so whimsical is that they're seeing like a child sees. And that doesn't mean that you just need to go out and take photos of clowns and ice cream cones. Kids don't know a lot of stuff, right? Embarrassing for them that they don't have a certificate in suspension geometry, but it's a big advantage with a camera. I think a lot of the time we could ignore subjects in our own photos that are interesting looking and maybe even pretty because we know what it is and it's not an interesting thing. This style of taking pictures is really open-minded. You kind of have to pretend that you don't really know what you're looking at. You're just seeing shapes and colors. This photo is just a pedestrian crossing sign. I mean, sure, to a lot of us it looks special because it's a Japanese pedestrian crossing sign, but if you grew up seeing these every day, you'd probably think it was boring. But on the right day, at the right angle, it fits in with the clouds, it matches, it's quite pretty. The power lines in the back of the other sign put us in a place. Maybe this is a town. But the thing is, this photo, it's not trying to document anything in particular. It's just saying, here's something I thought was pretty. I quite like that. Another really critical thing I've noticed about a lot of the compositions in here is the sense of scale. Remember how when you were like 5 years old, everything seemed really big? The angle certainly helps, but one of the main things that you can do to get that scale and depth in your photos is to make sure you're putting some stuff way far away in the background and some stuff really close to the camera. A lot of ye olde paintings do this very well, and it makes it so much more rewarding to spend a bit more time looking all around the picture to see what you can spot. Plus, when it comes to picking what stuff to photograph, like which subjects you should shoot, I think it's important to keep in mind that almost every photo in this book has some sort of blend of both man-made stuff and nature. There's almost always plants or clouds or sky or grass. And I'm not exactly sure what it is that makes that so satisfying to look at, but it definitely makes a difference. Now, in terms of gear, you can definitely get this vibe with anything. I genuinely think that some of these look like they might have been shot on an iPhone, but that doesn't make a very fun video, and people hate being told to shoot on their phone, me included. So here's what I would do if I wanted to really maximize my opportunity to get that whimsical feel with gear. In terms of lenses, I think I would go for something really close to what our eyes see, so between sort of 35 and 50. I like a 40 because that really helps it to feel kind of spontaneous, as if it is just something that somebody saw. But you could also try really wide angle lenses like a 21mm or an 18mm or something to get that exaggerated scale and depth. I shoot full frame, so you can take those focal lengths and divide them or multiply them by whatever your format is. I think you could definitely shoot these on film if you wanted, but something about the digital look really works for me here. And I think in terms of pushing the colors around to be exactly the way you want them to be, a RAW file is just more flexible than most film scans are going to be. And these don't look like memories. They look like something somebody saw today or last week. And so I think actually I prefer the digital look for this sort of photography. Also, filters might be fun. I recently picked up this Sunny Cross filter made by Kenko, based entirely on one tweet I saw where it looked really subtle, and then I went out to shoot with it at night and it really wasn't. But I think during the day when the sky is blue and not gray, this will be really fun to experiment with. Partially because of the cross effect, obviously, but sometimes when you use gear that forces you to shoot in a certain way and maybe just a little bit harder to take yourself so seriously, you might end up having a bit more fun and consequently take more whimsical photos. I think flash is great for a lot of stuff, but for this sort of thing, I do prefer natural light. Actually, you know what? I know so many photographers, from complete beginners to full-time professionals, and in fact, more often, the full-time professionals, who refuse to shoot in harsh midday light, which is insane because to me, that's the most exciting time of the day. It's when everything is the brightest and the most colorful and the most exciting. And I promise that if you have a camera made in the last 5 or 10 years, it can absolutely handle the harsh light, unless it has like cool pics written on it. Especially for photos like these, midday, high sun, bright as is kind of the way to go, and all you need to do is just expose for the highlights and then drag that shadow slider like it owes you money. There are a couple of other tricks that you can do in the edit. For example, I quite like to boost my vibrance and then pull it back with saturation. That way you get a lot more color contrast without more color. And if you really want to go for the full-on anime look, you could select the sky with point color and then play with the variance slider to get all of the blues to be the exact same blue. But most importantly of all, the one big thing I've learned from this book is that there is a very slim chance that you can't truly take photos where you live. How many of these photos are just the sky and it's stunning? How many of them are just power lines and a sign, and yet they work? And if you think about it for a second, somebody at some point had to work their butt off to put those power lines up, and somebody else had to manufacture them, and somebody before that had to design it all, and that might not make them aesthetically perfect, but I think it definitely makes them interesting. If you're unconvinced about shooting in harsh midday natural light, then watch this video next where I'll teach you everything I know. Stay hydrated and create art.